leadership doesn't start with your first management role. It starts a lot earlier. And there's a bad news for the audience here, which is it will never finish. If you are truly committed to becoming a better person, a better leader for yourself and for others, I don't think there's an end date to that. I believe anyone can lead, but the most important thing is having the right motivation to lead. If you lead just to grow faster in your career or to make more money, I don't think I would be a good leader if those were my main motivations to lead. Sometimes I think when you are truly leading, there's a responsibility in it and you have to feel the weight of it. If you don't feel any weight, I don't think you're probably caring too much as a leader.
Welcome to Blisstopia podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Castellani, life purpose coach, business owner, and your spiritual guide on all things mindset, manifestation, and purpose. This podcast is a space for deep reflections, meaningful conversations to help you expand your mind, dive into the depths of your soul, and create a life that makes you feel alive. Whether you're walking, driving, or simply vibing, take a deep breath and get ready to dive. Hello, my love. Welcome to another episode of Blisstopia podcast. I'm your host, Mercedes Castellani, and I'm really happy to be recording this episode. Today, we're going to talk about leadership with Marcos Westphalen. Marcos is a seasoned leader in the tech industry. He has a thriving career. He's been in Google for 19 years, where he ended up as the Google Customer Solutions Director for Spanish-speaking Latin America and Brazil. And he has really made a massive move, and he just joined Pinterest as the VP for LATAM. For context, Marco's wife, Laura, was a client of mine in the very early days of the business. And Marcos and Laura have been super supportive to Blisstopia, sending lots of recommendations, lots of clients. So I am forever grateful to Marcos and Laura for their support for the business in general, but especially in those early days, when you need people to believe in you. And they both believed in me in the very beginning. So I will forever be grateful. So thank you, Marcos, for being here, for your wisdom that you're bringing into the show. And I think we're going to have a fantastic conversation around leadership with you.
Thank you, Mers, for the kind introduction, the kind words. It's easy to help someone you believe in. And we did know that the people that we recommended your coaching sessions and your programs to were going to be very happy about it. Yeah, always good to help friends. And happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. We have so much to learn from you, Marcos, and the way you live and breathe and embody leadership is extremely inspiring. It's not just a nice word. It's a bunch of different values. It's a lot of vulnerability, specific style of leadership. So let's start by the very beginning, understanding your trajectory as the leader. Could you share with us, with the listeners, the key milestones in your career that really shaped you as the leader that you are today?
Yeah, I can start. Well, where should I start? Because maybe I should start a lot earlier than I'm thinking of. Leadership doesn't start with your first management role. It starts a lot earlier. And there's a bad news for the audience here, which is it will never finish. If you are truly committed to becoming a better person, a better leader for yourself and for others, I don't think there's an end date to that. So for me, I guess very early in my career and even before starting my professional life, leadership was about taking ownership of my future. That was leading at that point for me. It was taking ownership of my future. And that meant, in my case, doing some work outside of school in the early days. This is before college. So I was doing translations just to earn a few bucks and have a bit more freedom to do the things I wanted to do and hang out with my friends, basically. And then during the university, going for a scholarship and trying to sustain that scholarship over time, which involved working as well in the uni. I believe it starts from there, probably with you knowing that you are the main character of your life and that you should own it. And things will happen around you, good and bad, but it's ultimately up to you to own them and to push forward. And then I was very lucky to start with Google in the early days. I joined Google in Argentina in 2006. I was just 23 years old, so very, very young. I only worked 1 year before, or actually a lot more, because I started doing translations at age 14. But the reality is that I didn't have a lot of formal work experience. Google was starting its operation in Argentina in that year. And a friend of mine just shared with me, hey, there are a few people from the US here in Argentina. They are building the first Google team. And yeah, she offered sending my CV to them. And I was, well, fine. I didn't even apply. She sent the CV for me. She had their contact details. And then, yeah, I started my journey with Google in Argentina. I've been 7 years in Argentina. After 7 years in Argentina, I made the decision to expand my horizons and look for an opportunity to live abroad. And that was Ireland for me.
Mhm.
But yeah, I already had some management experience by then. So in terms of like management, yeah, probably my first day as a manager is a day I will remember a lot, because I was put in a very difficult situation where I had to build a team from scratch. So they gave me just one direct report and I had to hire like 8 people. But the first direct report I was assigned was a friend of mine, and he was assigned bad rating. So
Oops.
they told me, so yeah, it was not easy. I showed up alone to that performance evaluation where I was not yet evaluating her, and that was the starting point. So yeah, it taught me a good lesson that very easily I thought, okay, this is not going to be easy, or as
Mm.
easy or sexy as I thought. And it was a good lesson. So it made me ask, do you really want this, and why? And I
Mm.
think when it comes to leading others, having the right motivation is critical. And some of the early experiences I had, I was only 26 years old when I started managing people in Google. Um, yeah, made me ask the right questions. And it was a tough year, probably year and a half doing that. Then one day my boss called me to his office and told me, you have a new role now in another team where you won't be having a team in charge. It's interesting because at that point, I did want to manage people. But after that year and a half, that was really tough. This news was kind of okay with me. I was, well, you know what? I will learn other things. And if I really want to go back to people management, that's what I will do. But again, it was another moment that made me ask the right questions and wonder, is this what you really want and why?
Mm.
And I believe anyone can lead, but the most important thing is having the right motivation to lead. If you lead just to grow faster in your career or to make more money, I don't think I would be a good leader if those were my main motivations to lead. I could do other jobs or easier jobs.
Mm.
I did want to scale my impact and have impact on others, serve others. It was my main drivers. Yeah. And my main source of satisfaction as well.
Mm.
And of pain. Look, I think, yeah, sometimes I think when you are truly leading, there's a responsibility in it and you have to feel the weight of it. If you don't feel any weight, I don't think you're probably caring too much as a leader. So yeah, I always felt it as a blessing and as a weight because I took that responsibility very seriously. So yeah, those early pivotal moments were important for me to shape. I have an interview question that I ask for manager roles. I have many, but obviously the first ones are about the motivation. And then I also ask about what do you think your biggest challenge will be in this
Mm.
new post. And that's basically to test self awareness. Some people tell you, I don't see any challenges. Other people tell you, well, I will have to lead a friend or a former colleague, and that's a transition. And I see how I'll have to figure it out. Other people even tell you, yeah, I remember one answer that was like, no challenge. I always been leading, so this won't be a challenge. My only challenge will be that I have not been leading with a title. So I've been leading projects or groups, but never in a formal management position. And well, now it should be easier, right? Because I will get the title. And I was, no, this person doesn't understand it. It won't be easy. It won't be easier with the title. It will be as tough as without the title. So some people think that, okay, now that my leadership will be validated with a formal position or role, everything will be easier. And I think when you think that way, you're setting yourself up for failure, right? In that role.
Mm.
So yeah, I think strong self-awareness and then mutual awareness of your context, the people in your context, etc., is critical. I had those moments and I was happy I had those moments now because they helped me define my identity and answer very clearly why I wanted to do this.
So beautiful. And I love that you see leadership as a way of serving other people and having an impact on other people. And I think if we had more leaders who are thinking about it that way, this would definitely be a better world instead of having these little bit more selfish motivations, okay, I'm here to get faster to my next goal. I'm here to make as much money as possible. If we can think about the impact, if we can think about the people that we have around us, then things get a lot more interesting, I think.
Yeah, I'm impact driven. And I thought, what's the best platform for me to drive impact? And what kind of impact do I want to drive? And
Mm.
then the natural conclusion for me was doing this type of roles, which, by the way, I'm probably won't want to do forever. But yeah, I had clarity on that. Yeah, as said, it's fine to have different motivations. You don't have to, I think these roles are also over glorified sometimes.
Mm.
And this is less about that. And it's more about knowing who you are and doing something that really resonates with what you believe you are. And I think it's seeking for that alignment is more important than anything else. If you're aligned with what you are, you will be a happier person, you will be in a better position to serve others and all of that. So if you don't feel it, you shouldn't be doing it. I
Absolutely.
remember one time there was a good guy, a good friend that I want to transition into management and lead other people and do all of this. And I asked him why. He was, well, because I'm capped and the only way I can grow my career now, which, by the way, it's valid because this is the way, unfortunately, many organizations work. There should be more path for individuals to grow as individuals and not leading other people, because that
Mm.
basically leads people to want to move into management positions just to grow, which is a valid ambition, I believe. But yeah, then he told me he wanted this because of that. And I was, please don't do it because he would be a horrible manager. Would you want to have you as a manager just because you want to grow? And I was, tell me something different that you really want, but yeah, again, yeah, that's that.
It all goes back to the motivation.
Yeah, I
Fantastic.
think so.
So, how would you define a good leader? What's a good leader for you? Maybe people that you have seen, you know, at Google, people outside of Google. What's a good leader for you?
Great question. I like definitions because the problem with this topic, Mercy, is that all of us can talk about it, right? And we will all have different understandings and definitions of what leadership is and what a good leader looks like. I like the definition from Indra Nooyi, who was CEO at PepsiCo for many years, almost a decade or more. And I don't recall literally the definition, but she says more or less that a great leader is someone who is looking into the decades ahead. Decades shocked me. Was, what is she talking about? I cannot even look like
A year.
next month. But it highlighted the idea of long term. I believe a leader is always anticipating the long term and thinking about the long term impact. So she says a leader is someone who is looking into decades ahead with a vision of disrupting the status quo, shaping that change, not just reacting to the present, and bringing people on board with that. So I believe that's leadership to me. Leadership is about change. No one wants to lead to keep things as they are, right? You want to
Hmm.
lead because you believe there's a better future that's possible and you want to deliver that. But it's not enough with being disruptive. You have to be disruptive and at the same time bring people on board. I always say, like, some people say the hardest part of leading teams is being unpopular or making unpopular calls or decisions. I believe that's hard, but it's not the hardest part. The hardest part is being unpopular and bringing people on board with that unpopular. So that's harder. But if you are not able to bring people on board, human beings are afraid of change. I know none of us want to recognize that, but when it comes to change, that's how we act. You need someone that makes people believe that the change makes sense and that there's some hope in it for the future. So for me, That's leadership, or one definition I like. And related to this definition, there's another one from a few good leadership authors. I can then share the book. Very short. It says leadership is the ability to disappoint people at a rate they can absorb. So again, change, it can be disappointing. You will have to make decisions that will not make everyone happy. So you will inevitably disappoint people, and hopefully not everyone, because then probably the decision is not right, but you will disappoint some people. But at a rate they can absorb, which means you have to make sure that they are coming into the boat with that change and with that idea. So yeah, they will be disappointed, but they can deal with that.
They can
and they
tolerate
can
it.
move forward. Yeah. So that's how I understand leadership. Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful, so beautiful. And I love that the way you see leadership is, again, it's a force for change, it's a force for impact. So it always comes back to this vision of leadership, yes, but what for? Why are we doing all of this? What's the
Exactly.
long-term vision? And it should be compelling enough for everybody, for the leader to, bring all these people with him or her, and for the people who are there supporting the vision, working for the vision, being disappointed for the vision. So it does
Yeah.
require a lot.
For many people, a leadership role is a finish line. But if you have the idea of impact, it should be the starting point.
Yeah.
So for me, these roles are just the starting point to do great things, not a finish line where, okay, I will sit in this role for 10 years and get paid. And no, that's not my vision. And I don't think that's leadership.
So can we go a little bit further on this direction? Do you think there are some beliefs that one should unlearn in order to be a good leader?
What a deep question.
I'm here for deep questions.
Yeah, no, that's a really deep and good question. I think, yes, you need to unlearn every single day. We focus a lot on learning, but unlearning means letting go what you believe in, letting go your past as well,
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, you need to unlearn. You cannot scale your leadership if you don't unlearn your habits. It's probably the best, or the most simple example I can think of is the one where you transition from leading a small group to leading a larger group, where you will not be a successful leader if you continue leading the same way. And again, leadership is always situational, right? I used to believe in my early days, I had very defined characteristics as a leader, and that made me the leader I was. But over time, I think, and I thought that was a strength, but over time, I learned that a good leader can be many different leaders depending on the situation and context. You don't have, obviously, you have certain strengths, and some biases as well. So you probably lean towards a certain way of leading. I believe your strength lies on unlearning that and being able to be a different type of leader. Because it's not about your leadership style, it's about the leadership style the team needs. So you need to understand what the team needs and how far you can push them and what's the best way to push them. That's why sometimes leadership transitions are so critical, I believe. And I've gone through a few during my career. When you change teams, sometimes you come already with your preconceived ideas of what should be done, and you don't connect with the people that you're supposed to lead. So I think, yeah, that's you need to be unlearning. You need to be flexible. And I think that's your biggest strength as a leader.
And in that sense, do you think a person has one style for the whole team? Or do you think it's better to adapt the style depending on the individual member that you have inside of the team? How have you managed this in the past?
No, I think you need to adapt for each individual, because every individual is in a different place. Your core values are the same, but the way you approach it is different. In the last 6 months, I've been leading Brazil, which was a team that was going through a transition within Google Customer Solutions. One thing I knew was that 3 of the people I would be leading were competing and aspiring to be the future leader of Brazil. I was there covering that role on a temporary basis. Not everyone was going for that role, and not all 3 of them were going with the same aspirations. But I believe as a leader, you need to be sensitive to the individual realities. And sometimes, you go and push hard on your agenda and the things that you want to accomplish. But I believe giving the team that space is ultimately very important to accomplish those things that are in your agenda. You need to give the team space. You need to understand the reality, spend time to connect personally, not just professionally. Um, and yeah, that means that it's a different conversation with each person.
Absolutely. And in your experience, do you think men and women do leadership differently? Have you seen some distinct characteristics, or it blends and it becomes one same style?
No, I think it's different. And this is just based on my experience. So it's not scientific research. But yeah, I think in the same way, people with different backgrounds bring something different to the table. People from different genders bring something different to the table. But again, it's hard to generalize from my own experience because I had people in all buckets. I've been led by women that were leading like men or vice versa. So I don't know how to organize that, but I do believe in diversity. And I think gender is one of the components of diversity. Yeah, I believe women bring different things to the table. Yeah, you have parents as well. I think parents, regardless of gender, can bring something different to the table because they have to deal with a lot of pressure. I'm trying to think on my own journey since I became a parent, and I believe that my biggest leadership challenges were as a parent. It's interesting because you're in the context of a corporation. If you're in a good position, the problem that you have is that you're used to, generally speaking, people following your way, more or less. Yeah, it doesn't work like that with a kid. So,
The kid
and
is
it's a
not
great
expecting
journey.
for the promotion. The kid is not expecting for the salary raise. So it's a little bit
Yeah,
more
yeah.
difficult too.
So yeah, I believe women bring great values to leadership in many ways. We need more women in leadership positions to have more diversity of styles from a gender perspective as well. Yeah, I've been led by great women. I've been led by not so great women too. So it's not a generalization, but I think the more diversity you have, the better team you will have too. You don't want a group thing. You don't want a group of leaders that has have gone to the same university and have shared all the same life experiences. You want people that bring something different to the table because leadership is about perspective as well. And if you don't have enough diversity, you don't have enough perspective. That's my view on that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree with that. And then I think in terms of when we are in there, in the moment, in the challenges of leadership, one of the main challenges that I've always seen in my corporate career, in my business, is how do we balance speed and intentionality? So how do we make fast decisions, but making wise decisions at the same time? I know some cultures, for example, the US, they're more into, okay, we make fast decisions, we learn. And Europe is a lot more, no, let's wait. Maybe we're going to be a bit slower, but we're going to make the right decisions and we're not changing the course. So, how do we balance making fast decisions in a world that is changing every day, now even more with AI? So, how do we make fast and wise decisions at the same time?
Yeah, you said balance, and it's a balance because if you're all about speed and zero intention, that's chaos. And if you are all about intention and no speed, it won't work either. So obviously you need speed and you need intention. You need both. And in terms of how do you balance it, I believe first I would be, or the way I think about it, I can go as fast as confidence we have as a group. So confidence gives you speed. If you take on a new group and there's no confidence, no trust between team members, between the leader and the team members, and between everyone, really, you may try to go fast, but it won't work. It will break. So speed in a context of low confidence, I guess, is risky. And by definition, building confidence takes time. So you will never, I believe, be able to go as fast as you want as a leader. At least that is my experience. I think in 100% of the situations I can think of, I wish I moved faster.
Yeah.
But you're working with other people. You're not on your own. It's easier to do stuff on my own and I can go super fast. So that's for me the main takeaway. In terms of speed, in terms of intention, I believe it is critical. It's not always clear. And that can give you a bit of speed. Clarity can give you speed as well. It's confidence, but also clarity. So I try to be transparent about the why and spend a lot of time explaining my decisions. I think, some people renamed the CEO role as the CCO role instead of Chief Executive Officer, Chief Communications Officer. And I believe you may have great intentionality, but if that intentionality is not known, it's like not having it. You need that intentionality is known, shared to some degree or to the greatest possible degree. So yeah, when it comes to intention, I think it's all about involving the group and making sure that we're all clear and we're all excited about why we want to do what we want to do. So that's how I would think about this dilemma between speed. Again, you will never go as fast as you want. Then you can go faster or slower, but ideally faster, but it will never be fast enough. And the intention, it needs to be shared because people do and believe what they help create.
Yeah.
If I tell you, Mers, I know the intention, but look, just go do it. We can then talk about it. That's one thing. And you will do whatever. But if we spend time aligning on that intention and you contribute to that intention, it will be a lot better. There's an experiment that was done. I don't remember who did it now, but they give two groups of people lottery tickets, one lottery ticket per person. Group one, the ticket is assigned. Group two, the ticket is a ticket of their choice. They choose the number. Let's say we're talking about numbers.
Mm-hmm.
After everyone has their lottery ticket, they give them the option to change it to another lottery ticket. Which group do you think has disproportionately changed their number?
One that got it. The one that chose in the first place, I imagine they just keep what they chose.
Yeah, exactly. And it's irrational, right? Because statistically, you have the same chances of winning the lottery, whether you chose it or not. It's one number out of X.
It's funny. I was thinking completely from an emotional point. I didn't think about the mathematics of it. I was like, no, if you chose this, you want this. You really want this. So you're keeping it.
You chose 23, the number 23, my favorite number probably. Well, what? Okay, the group that did not choose the number, that the group that got assigned, the number assigned, would decide to switch the number like 5x or a lot more than the group that chose. So
Wow.
This is an important lesson as well, because then, you go into the room with your deck and your 20 slides, your vision, and people did not help create that. So people do what they help create, help them create with you. And that also takes time, unfortunately. So yeah, but I think there is this distinction that's important when you talk about intention, because you may have a very clear intentionality. You may even communicate it very well, but there's this third element that is what stake do people have in it? And that was a big learning for me. I obviously made the mistake of coming with a deck and saying, this is the plan. Didn't work
Instead of
as
letting
well
them
as I would do.
build.
Yeah.
Yes, so beautiful, so beautiful. So I love this. If we had to summarize, I think it would be take time to really build the trust, build the confidence with your team. And once you're there, let them grow, let them create. And that's going to propel you and actually allow you to make better decisions, but also with a lot of speed, because now you have a team it's a team. So it's actually working in a very with close ties, instead of being, everybody on their side and wasting a lot of time and having disagreements and all kinds of things.
And there's one more thing that's important, because sometimes you get comfortable. And I believe that as a leader, you can never get comfortable. So how do you set your own pace for change? We're talking here about speed, meaning I want the group to move fast, but are you moving fast enough?
Mm.
I have a trick question I ask myself to keep my speed and my own rhythm, which is, if someone else came to your role today, what's the first thing that that person would change? And then you come up with 20 ideas of, shoot, I should be doing all of this. Because if someone else will come to your role and do all these changes, it's because you should be doing them right now.
Yes.
So,
Yes. If the answer to
that's
that question is you, we have a problem.
but this is endless. You can never say my job is done as a leader. You can always do more. I think then there's the part of understanding when you have done your part and contributed more than enough. There's always more to do. You also have to find that balance. Now that I changed careers and switched to another company after too many years in Google, I thought, well, I've been 3.5 years in my last role, and I feel I contributed 80% of what I could contribute, and probably more than me doing 81% or 82%. It's better that someone else does that, and someone else will not do 81 or 82, will do a lot more exponential than you would do at that point. Yeah, I think it's also important to know when your time has come for a new challenge and be open. Then, of course, life is not always easy. Sometimes you're open to a new challenge, but you are not just finding it. Okay, but sometimes the opportunities are there and you're just not open to them because you're in a comfortable spot. And that's the situation you want to avoid.
Absolutely. And speaking about speed, was there a time where you decided to actually slow down and that allowed the team to move forward faster? Because we're always talking about speed, 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 more, 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 more. But was there a time when you set a pause and that actually propelled things way faster afterwards?
Well, I think in this recent experience with Brazil, that's exactly what happened. So the team was going through a transition, reorganizing itself before I came, and with many new people in new roles, and sales rigor of that organization dropped. And I wanted to fix it like in 24 hours. But again, I think I realized that if I was going to push that, I didn't have fertile ground to be successful. So I decided to move slower, but very quickly we achieved that, because then, yeah, just being sensitive to the reality of different people in that team made it a lot easier than to say, hey, by the way, our sales rigor dropped and what can we do about it? Versus just coming as this is unacceptable. We need this and that. How can we drop? And I want to understand, explain me this, explain me that. Yeah, I think I realized that was not going to work. Yeah, sometimes slow is fast and sometimes fast is very slow.
Yes.
And yeah, absolutely.
I love this. Love this. And I have a question. Of course, you've been, in the tech industry for many, many years, very data driven. Was there a point where you made decisions based purely on intuition? Maybe even moments where intuition and data were not saying the same thing, and you just pushed through with your intuition? Did you have any experience like that?
Yes, I use intuition a lot. I know this is not popular to say because, as you said, like first, when we say data driven, let's be careful, because I like to ask people, how many times did you change your mind based on some data that you've seen? And very few people change their mind because of data they see. So if data is not changing your mind, then you're not data driven. So to be data driven, you need to be able to be wrong and data be right. So for me, many times we just use data to validate what we already think we should be doing. Yeah, in my case, so I believe organizations are a lot less data driven than we believe they are first, even in tech. I don't think, yeah, maybe we see more slides with more stats, but that doesn't mean that we're more data driven. Using more numbers doesn't make you more data driven first.
I love this.
Yeah. So I think very few organizations are really data driven. To be data driven, you need to be curious to seek where you're failing, what is wrong with your strategy, and proactively look for that. Yeah. So in my case, I don't know I'm trying to think about examples, but I did use my intuition throughout my career a lot. Sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So there's not like this is better or this is worse. I believe intuition can be data. You need to dig deeper into it to understand it. What do you feel that way about something, And sometimes it's biases or whatever, and sometimes no. Sometimes it's something there very rational, but that you haven't processed yet. I like for my career choices, I normally used intuition and not data, because there are some things where you cannot use data. How much you trust someone, how much you believe in the vision of that team that you're in versus in the vision of the team that you're going into. So for my career decisions, I would say I never use data. Data is just a filter between the good and the bad, and then you're left with two good options. So what do you do? Rationally, both are good. This is like choosing in which country to live, by the way, because like once you lived abroad for some time and you did MERS, you realize there's no perfect country, right? You're prioritizing certain things versus others. So for me, I think intuition is okay to use to debunk that myth that we should all be data driven. First, we're not, unless we're seeking contradiction. I think it's fine to use intuition sometime and learn from that. If things don't go as expected, why, and things like that. Where I use that a lot is in when I had to do reorganizations of teams. You say, okay, this is the ideal structure, but then how do you decide which players go into which part of the structure? And you want to be, or I tried to be equitable and fair in my decisions. So I would look at a lot of data points to make sure that my personal preference was not trumping our data. When you don't use data, you're also exposed sometimes to recency bias. So say we just had an amazing conversation and I think you're great, and I didn't have this conversation with another great person, and our promotion discussions are tomorrow. Yes. And the reality is that the other person, if I look at the data, has had higher ratings than you for 3 years. Okay, then I need to stick to the data, because there was a reason for someone to evaluate that person that way. So I try to use data for equity and fairness and to develop my criteria. But in terms of setting the direction, not always. There's another trick with data, which is data tells you a lot of things about the past, but it never tells you anything about the future. Unless you believe the future is the same as the past. And I think there's data to show that that's not the case. That's how I think about this.
Yes. And I love this nuance. Let's be really careful that we're not making a mistake between intuition and biases, subconscious biases that we might have about people, about situations, about whatever it might be. So we need to be very, very careful with that.
Yeah, I think we all have biases. Again, this requires a lot of self-awareness. Another of the interview questions I like asking when I interview for people management roles is, Mercy, you're on your first week on the role, and there's a person in the team that in your first one-to-one asks you for promotion. And this person has been working on it for many years, and it exposes all the case to you. What do you do?
Do you want the answer?
Yes.
I would listen to this person. I would say to myself, okay, we have an ambitious person in the team. Fantastic. Take notes. I see it as, okay, I'm interested in this. I'll listen to your desire. And then, of course, you need to analyze the whole strategy for the team. What's happening? What are you going to do? Do you have other people? Do you have any promotions that you can give at some point? Do you have other people? I would just take note of the desire and have a note to myself, this person is ambitious. That's it.
You obviously have your biases very in check, right? Because you would be surprised. Many people say, well, I will see what I can do to help this person. So they go deep into the case.
Yeah.
Well, and if the information that this person is providing me is convincing, then I will help this person. But there are like 5, 6 other people in your team that maybe deserve it better and have not raised the topic. So the bias is there, right? You have, I believe as a leader, you will always have to be fighting against bias and say, what I see is just a part of the reality. How do I make sure I have the broader view, and that people that may not be as visible and may not be as vocal maybe are better? I don't know. So, but I need to consider everyone. This is not to go to the other side and say, if you're vocal, for sure, no, that's also wrong, right? Maybe this person deserves it and is vocal, but you have to assume that there's a bigger universe that you need to look into. I believe we don't. Yeah, you can always make two types of errors. Error type 1, you did something that you shouldn't have done. Error type 2, you didn't do something that you should have done. And the reality is sad, because you will always make one of these two errors. And the more error type 1s you make, the less of the error type 2, or let's say the less error type 1s you make, the more you will make of type 2. And the less error type 2 you make, the more. I know this is getting technical, but like in reality, you will always make mistakes. You have to balance what type of mistakes you make.
Which ones you make?
Well, I think organizations always make the error type 2 mistake more than type 1. So they just ignore problems that are there. It's not what they do, it's what they don't do that they should be doing. Like simplifying a process or discussing people that have good performance but have not been brought up for promote by their managers. Yeah, I think organizations make more that type of mistake.
Yeah.
This is something I learned in university from a very random subject. It was political science. And the professor said, like, if you want to be good political analysts, you have to see the political event during a protest as well as when the street is empty.
Yeah.
If the street is empty, that doesn't mean there's no political event. You have to think, was there a negotiation with the union for that protest not to take place? Why is this not happening? Not only why is this happening? So I believe a good leader has a broad view and can see, we're humans, we're not perfect. We're all imperfect. But you can train that. You can train yourself to see the broader picture more often than not.
And I love this, that we see one point of view, we really need to try to see as many different points of view as possible to get the full picture of what's happening, because otherwise we might miss important situations that are happening in a team because we're just looking at our perspective or one side of the equation, but there's multiple sides and multiple point of views. So
that's where the team comes to. It's not, but you're leading with a team of leaders. And yeah, what I loved about the people I worked with was that they helped me see things through a different point of view. And there's a particular person that was part of my teams that was so good at seeing one same problem from different points of view, where I was more like, no, like this is that. And was, yes, but from another point of view, you could also think about it this other way. And I think it's a good skill to have.
Absolutely. And you know that I'm all about purpose, being aligned with our purpose. So what is your purpose in life? I know you've asked yourself these deep questions. So what is your purpose in life?
I never formulated it. So this may be the first time.
Live, no pressure.
I think I have a purpose. I just haven't formulated it or tried to define it. We started this conversation talking about impact, and I think there's a big part of that. And impact for me has been helping others grow, and others could be people or companies. I feel very well connected to my purpose when I see, for instance, other people or businesses do things that they thought not possible. When I help someone discover a new tool that will deliver new growth for them, that's where I see purpose. In my case, it's very tied to the idea of economic impact. In the case of businesses, maybe that's because of my background, I don't know, but I believe there's so much potential in Latin America. And if you can play a little role in helping others grow, deliver more economic impact for their companies, for their clients, for their communities, for me, that's connected to my purpose. I like to see people making more money.
Absolutely.
Because that brings freedom, that brings possibility, that brings jobs. Yeah, and that's how many people make their dreams come true. So For me, it's something around that probably. And yeah, on the individual side is, yeah, seeing people grow successful. I think that's the best that can happen to me. Yeah, when I see people that I worked with and that I see are thriving, then that makes me very happy.
Yeah. And you're especially very, very generous. You have a huge community on LinkedIn. If people are not following you yet on LinkedIn, they should. It's a must. And you're very generous with your wisdom, with your knowledge, with your experience, really supporting other people in their growth. And I think as a consequence of that, you have many people who are very keen on learning from you.
Thank you, Mars. Look, yeah, I think life is amazing and it's better if we all help each other. And yeah, it's always been my philosophy. And I am proud that I have not changed that philosophy over the years. Obviously, I've grown in my own career. And, there's this syndrome of the crab that you see sometimes where when the crab tries to get outside of the bucket, the crab steps on the other crabs so they cannot get out. And sometimes you see that. Sometimes you see people that have been very successful but are not generous. And actually, they are happier if no one is even near to what they have accomplished. For me, it's the opposite. It's about bringing people with you and sharing that success that makes me happy. And that drives me. And that's very personal, but it's how I feel it.
So beautiful. So beautiful. And talking about purpose and leadership, how can a leader make sure that the employees in a company are really connected to their purpose? Because sometimes when we're in a big structure, we can lose sight of what we're doing and why. We're just, we follow processes, we have KPIs to meet, and we can lose sight of what we're actually doing. So, how can a leader help the team members in a company who have a job to really be connected with their purposes, individual purposes?
Yeah, this is interesting because I think today there's a big disconnection between purpose and in the workplace. Like just a Gallup last survey, employees that are engaged, it's like 20%. That means that 80% of the workforce globally is not engaged with their jobs. If you're not engaged, probably there's zero purpose, right, in what you're doing. So look, there are many approaches. I like one that looks into this problem not from an individual motivation standpoint, because obviously you will hear someone say, oh, these new generations, they are crazy, they are so different and we don't understand them, whatever, they are broken. No, the problem is not that. I think the new generations are amazing and probably more purpose driven than the older generations or us. I think the problem is not individual motivation. That's what I'm saying. I think the problem is that we live in a world that's more complex. And in order to respond to that greater complexity of the world, organizations have become more complex. And when organizations become more complex, that means there's more bureaucracy. First, the complexity of the world, we can't control it. Like, let's assume it's real. Like, I don't know if you studied business administration or what, but there's Michael Porter, right? What's the strategy companies needed to decide on? Cost or differentiation, right? Today, companies have to resolve a lot more things like their environmental sustainability, have to decide even like what's the working style? Like, should it be remote? Should it be hybrid? They need to decide, or there's more legislation, there's technology changes like AI, a lot of things. There's even war in 2025 in the world when we thought war was over. So there's a lot happening. Companies try to solve for a more complex world, becoming more complex, creating more departments, creating more structure, creating more processes. And in the meantime, people start disconnecting from what the organization should be doing. So I believe leaders play a big role helping people process the complexity, ideally simplifying as well. But if you cannot simplify or you have not been successful simplifying in the real world, at least help people process that complexity in a way they understand their contribution. And I believe that in that context, what happens is that people believe they are no longer seen by their leaders, by their organization. And I believe a good leader first makes people feel seen. And when you feel seen, you start feeling that what you do matters. And if I can help you understand why it matters, and that's that. So I believe leaders should be ideally processing the complexity of the world with organizations that do not become equally complex and that stay simple. And that's very hard to do because you're if you do any exercise, or if you do an exercise with any team about things they should start doing, continue doing, or stop doing, stop will always be this the lowest. We're good to start things. We're very good at starting new projects, starting new or delivering new solutions, sometimes for problems that don't exist or that are not worth solving, right? Like there are problems that are not worth solving, but we still are driven to start. We add to the complexity, and we're not so good at stopping things or merging things. I did an exercise with my teams, which was a project mapping. And every now and then we would review all the team projects and just start, merging, connecting the dots, or even killing projects. And we would do it 6 months later, and we would have what happened. Like we reduced from 40 to 20, and now we have 50. There's an inertia for organizations towards complexity that I believe leaders need to help break.
Absolutely. And let's go into the future now. And how do you think leadership is going to evolve in the next 5, 10 years? Even 5 years seems long term now. And I'm thinking, with AI, automation, the reduction of the workforce, how do you think leadership is going to evolve in the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, I think the world will become more complex, or will continue to become more complex. I try to think first, when you look at the future, there's this very useful framework from Jeff Bezos that says that you shouldn't start by thinking about what will change, but what will stay the same.
Yes.
So then you can see what will change. And I think what will stay the same is that the pace of technological change and innovation will continue to accelerate, as it's been accelerating over the past few years. The complexity will continue to accelerate. I believe our children will live in a more complex world, for sure, than the one we lived. Like now we look at our childhood with nostalgia and how simple things were. And probably this is the simplest version now for our kids, right? So I believe that will continue to be complex. And to me, if complexity continues to accelerate, if technology continues to accelerate and that does not change, what will have to change is probably that leadership will have to be more human, and effective leadership will look like more human leadership. So that's what I believe is positive. And I don't think we will be governed by robots, although some people are saying that in surveys already, that they would prefer to have AI as their manager versus their current manager.
Good.
Like 40-45% will say that. But I believe, the future is more human with more human leaders. And that's probably a good change.
Yes, we will need. We will need more emotions, more empathy, more compassion in a world where everything is, automated and standard, and it's going to become also a little bit more basic. So we need more human emotions in there.
Yeah, I think that can help.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Marcos, for your wisdom, for your time, for your generosity, as usual. So where can listeners find you online in case they want to connect with you, ask you a question about leadership, ask you questions about Google, Pinterest, learn about leadership with you? So where can they find you?
Yeah, you mentioned it. I'm usually active on LinkedIn, now on Instagram as well. I started recently. So those two probably are the best platforms where you can find me or send me a note, and I'll do my best to get back to you.
And I always like to finish the episodes with 3 rapid fire questions. So literally, first thing that comes to mind. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, let's do it.
I don't know, but let's say yes.
Let's say yes, and then we'll see. When was the last time you felt bliss?
The last time I felt bliss, probably yesterday. I have two small kids, 4 and 1, soon 5 and 2. And yeah, they always come up with something great. Now my daughter has picked her favorite color, which is apparently gray.
Great.
Yes.
That's very, very original for a little girl.
Yeah. Everything has to be gray. Like, she doesn't let me dress her up if it's not with a gray outfit. So she starts saying gris, 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 gris. And my boy did a karate class last night, where an exam. He does classes regularly, and he did the martial arts. I don't know if karate is a word in English or Spanish, but the martial arts, let's call it. And he had his test yesterday. And he was a bit nervous because he had to break a piece of wood. And last time he tried, it was kind of tricky. But yeah, he managed and he was very happy. So I did feel bliss yesterday for sure. Dressing
So
up my
cute.
daughter in gray outfit and going with my boy to the test and
So
having
cute.
him break that piece of wood.
So cute. So cute. If she likes gray, I think she should move to London, Northern Europe, where it's all gray at the moment. The second question is, can you think of one idea that fundamentally changed your life?
But these are not rapid fire. Well, very rapid fire optionality. I always thought that if the world was open for opportunity, you will have more opportunities in it. So in order to build my career, I always tried to be as open as I could to the world for as long as I could. And I don't feel settled. So yeah, I think I lived through that idea of optionality. Didn't stick to, okay, I want to do all of this, but I don't want to be in Argentina, which, by the way, is perfectly fine. It's just I believed optionality was a powerful idea in my life. And the more open I would be to the world, the more opportunities I would have to do interesting things in my career.
Absolutely. And if you could choose one rule that everybody in the world needs to obey, what would it be?
One rule: challenge the status quo. I think the world would be better if I believe everyone has something to contribute. And I believe we would be in a better world if everyone did their part.
Absolutely. It would also be a world full of change, novelty, innovation.
Yeah, like, it doesn't have to be big, it can be very small, but it's still significant if we all do that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Marcos, for your time, for your wisdom, for bringing all of your generosity in terms of leadership today.
Thanks, Mercy. It's been a nice conversation, so really enjoyed it. Thank you for the opportunity and the space in this podcast. And looking forward to a part 2, maybe in a year or so.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. I will see my listeners in the next episode. And in the meantime, in Blisstopia we trust. If you loved this episode, spread the word, share the episode with a friend who would love to hear this, subscribe to the show, and leave a 5-star rating on Spotify, Apple Podcast, or YouTube. This real quick action on your side helps the podcast grow, reach more women around the world, and it would literally make my day. I will see you next Friday for the next episode, and in the meantime, in Blisstopia we trust.